Would you breathe with me, please? Taking a deep breath. And let it go. Another deep breath. And release it. And one more deep breath in. Thank you. It helps me to get centered. I always appreciate you guys are willing to breathe with me. So this weekend, of course, people all over Canada are observing this very solemn holiday of Remembrance Day, honoring the people who gave their lives in service to the country. You all know I'm from the States, so in the United States we have a similar thing too, except this particular day on November 11th is Veterans Day. And this is where all veterans, both living and deceased, are honored. And then there's also Memorial Day, which is more than just a time to have a sale and the start of summer. It's actually the day where people in the U.S. honor those who have fallen and killed in service. But one of the things that impresses me so much and moves me so much about Remembrance Day here in Canada is the recognition that it spans all generations and genders and races and culture. It's so touching to see so many people wearing the red poppy in remembrance of the sacrifices that were made for the freedoms that we enjoy, for the freedoms that we enjoy. So what I'd like you to do is just join with me in a moment of silence for this. In gratitude. In gratitude. I'm going to turn my fan on just a little bit. Excuse me just a minute. Besides, this will make my talk kind of flow in a nice way. So once a year, about once a year, I do a spiritual talk on immortality and eternal life. But instead of it being sad and maudlin, I guarantee that even though we are going to talk about death today, we're going to talk about immortality, I guarantee that you will be uplifted and feel joyful when we're done. So don't leave just like, oh no, I don't want to hear about this. Well, you promise to hang in? Yes, you promise to hang in, okay. Because our teaching, we call it the science of mind, our teaching has the happiest, the healthiest, and the most life-affirming philosophy about life and death than I have ever learned and ever heard in my life. And I do mean, even though it's a talk about death, I do mean that it is life-affirming. It's not an oxymoron. I'm going to explain what I mean here. Because in our teaching, we don't think of death as an ending. We think of death as transition. In fact, we call it transition because that's what it is. It is a transition from one form of life to another. It's a rebirth of sorts. It's a graduation. It's a moving on of the spiral of ongoing life, the spiral of life. Now, of course, in our teaching, that spiral doesn't necessarily take us to a place in heaven where we sit around on clouds and eat angel food cake and strum harps. It also doesn't take us to a place called hell. Both of these are states of consciousness. I'll do a talk about this. But you know, it isn't hell where we burn in damnation. When I'm talking about that spiral of life, I'm talking about that after we have this life that we have here, and we learn the life experiences that we learn, our physical bodies go back into the earth in some form. Whether it's burial, or whether it's cremation, or whether it's that super cool new thing where you put your ashes in like tree roots and you get planted and then you become a tree. Have you guys seen that? That's so cool. But what I'm talking about with that spiral means that our awareness, our consciousness, our essence, our soul continues to spiral upwards into the next life experience. Like I said, it's a graduation. Therefore, instead of fearing death, we can celebrate it. Now, not that we want it to happen really soon, because after all, life here on earth is pretty cool, and we don't want it to end too soon. But when we have an understanding about eternal life, about life ongoing, when we understand that, it can take some of the sting out of this process of death. Because let's face it, folks, it's going to happen to all of us. Yeah? None of us is getting out of here alive. Not yet. Now, so we may as well make the most of it while we are here, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But first, I had fun preparing this talk, by the way. I wanted to talk about the science behind the idea of immortality. Science, you say? Lucille just did that. She went, science, yes. Science actually supports the idea of immortality because, wait for it, okay? Because science teaches us, right, that everything is made out of energy, right? Are you with me? Absolutely everything. That means our planet, it means the atmosphere, it means these physical bodies, it means anything that's solid, even the stage, all of this is made out of energy. But as Einstein said, energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be changed from one form to another. So because one of the basic tenets of our teaching is that God, which I call God, I call it the life force energy, we don't care what you call it, it doesn't care what you call it, but it is all there is. That God energy is all there is. It is made up of energy. And therefore, based on what Einstein is talking about, that universal divine energy cannot be created or destroyed or died. It simply changes its manifestation. Yes? Yeah. And because we are made up of the same energy and the same substance as that, then we don't die either. We transform. We transition. So even when our physical form wears out, either through illness or through an accident, whatever it is, old age, whatever, and it ceases to function, our energy, our essence, that which lives us, continues on into the next energetic expression, whatever that is. Because that's the reason that we are here. We are here to be a manifestation. We are here to be an expression of life with a capital L. Take a deep breath. We are here so that the universe can experience itself more fully. That's why we are here. So as I said earlier, it is up to us to have experiences, to gain knowledge and wisdom, to live a life that is full, to have fun, because all of that enhances the expression of God through us and as us. And I didn't make this up. I'm kind of a fun-loving gal, but I didn't make this up. Even our founder, Ernest Holmes, said this. He said, the impulse of the spirit to move must be caused by a desire to express what it feels itself to be. Beauty, form, color, life, love, and power. Everything else we find in the manifest universe are attributes of the Spirit and are caused to spring into being because Spirit wants to enjoy itself. Can I get an amen to that? I love this teaching! I'm going to tell this story. I didn't plan on it. I shared it with my foundation students this week or a couple of weeks ago. I've always been someone who marches a little bit to my own, into a different drum. And in my family of doctors and military officers and teachers and stuff, they thought I was a little fun-loving, shall we say. So I remember being in the teaching and reading the chapter on page 271 of The Science of Mind that says, does the thing you wish to do express more life, more joy, more happiness, and at the same time harm no one? That is God's will for you. And I remember reading that and calling my mother and saying, I've been doing it right all these years. Because Spirit wants to enjoy itself in this lifetime and subsequent lifetimes' experiences and expressions. Now, there may be some people who have trouble believing that there is something beyond this lifetime. We want to believe it. I would say that most humans want to believe that, and humankind, cultures have always had myths and legends about what happens when we die. We have stories of heaven and hell and reincarnation and karma and all that other stuff. Every culture, every religion has some way of explaining what happens after death. And yet the truth is, we don't actually know. Because nobody's come back to tell us what happens. So one of our challenges as creative, thinking, conscious beings is that we still need to take it on faith. That this isn't the only go-around. That life does go on. We have to take it on faith, even though science backs it up, and that's really cool. But science backs it up. We still have to take it on faith that when we go somewhere, and we have another experience. So I've got a really sweet story that I want to share with you. It's a nature story. You know me, I love nature. Explains death and transition in this really beautiful and life-affirming way. It's called The Water Bug and the Dragonfly. Down below the surface of a quiet pond lived a colony of water bugs. They were a happy colony, living far away from the sun. For many months they were very busy, scurrying over the soft mud at the bottom of the pond. They did notice, however, that every once in a while, one of their colonies seemed to lose interest in going about whatever it is water bugs do. Clinging to the stem of a pond lily, it gradually moves out of sight and is seen no more. Look, said one of the water bugs to the other. One of our colony is climbing up a lily stalk. Where do you suppose it is she's going? Up, up, up. She slowly went. Even as they watched, the water bug disappeared from sight. The friends waited and waited, but she never returned. That's funny, said one water bug. Wasn't she happy here? Where do you suppose she went? Well, nobody had an answer. They were puzzled. So one of the water bugs, a leader in the colony, gathered his friends together and he said, tell you what, I have an idea. He says, the next time one of us climbs up the lily stalk, we have to promise to come back and tell the others where we went and why we went there. Does everybody promise to do that? And they all said yes. So one spring day, not so long after, the very water bug who had suggested the plan found himself climbing up the lily stalk. Up and up and up he went. Before he knew what was happening, he had broken through the surface of the water and fallen onto a broad green lily pad above. When he woke up, he looked around with surprise. He couldn't believe what he saw. A startling change had come over his old body. His movement revealed 4 silver wings and a long tail. Even as he struggled, he felt the impulse to move his wings. And the warmth of the sun dried the moisture on his new body. And he moved his wings again, and suddenly he found himself up and over the water. He had become a dragonfly. Swooping and sweeping, and he flew, and he was exhilarated with this new atmosphere. And after a while, he took a rest on a lily pad, and that's when he looked down into the pond again. Why, he was right above his old friends, the water bugs. And there they were, scurrying just as they'd been doing before he left. And the dragon remembered the promise. The next one of us who climbs the lily stalk will come back and tell us where they went and why. So without thinking, the dragonfly darted down, but he hit the surface of the water and he bounced back. And he realized that now he was a dragonfly. He could no longer go into the water. I can't return, he said in dismay. I tried, but I can't keep my promise. Even if I go back now, no, not one of those water bugs will know me in my new body. I guess I'll just have to wait until they become dragonflies too. Then they'll understand what has happened to me and where I went. And with that, the dragonfly winged off happily into its wonderful new world of sun and air. Sweet, isn't it? Such a sweet story. I love the images that it evokes in my heart as I think about my loved ones who have made their transition. And one point that I think is really important for us to make is that even because we believe in immortality, just because we believe that life goes on and that when people have passed, their spirit lives on, it doesn't mean that we don't miss them and that we aren't sad when they pass on. Of course we are. But what we need to remember is that we are sad for the loss in our lives, not for them. They've gone on. They've gone on to their next experience. They've graduated. They've become a dragonfly. So it's important for us to remember that the sadness that we feel is for ourselves, and because we will miss that person. However, the wonderful thing about immortality is not only does the person's essence live on after they've transitioned, but they also live on in our memories of them. Because once someone has touched our lives, someone they become part of our memories, they've achieved yet another kind of immortality. I love this quote. I use this often. The wind casts seeds to scatter in the breeze. We plant seeds of love into other souls to bloom. Those who bloom in the hearts of others never die. That's why when I do celebrations of life, and I love doing celebrations of life because of this philosophy, because I love being able to talk about this with people. I often make a space during the service for people to share memories and stories, and it's very deliberate because it's an opportunity to celebrate the life of the person who has transitioned and to share how that person touched their lives. And in doing so, both those who are sharing and those who are listening have an opportunity to relive that story, to have that memory, to have that experience again. And then they can realize that the person that they love who has transitioned truly does live forever, both in this life, through our memories of them, and also for the next life. So I'd like to close with my favorite memorial poem. And it pretty much sums up everything that I've just been talking about here. And it illustrates this idea of life ongoing. And I'm putting it up there, but you can either read it or you can close your eyes and listen. I just want you to enjoy this poem as much as I do. Death is nothing at all. I've only slipped away into the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to the other, that we still are. Call me by my familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way you always used. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed, at the little jokes we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me. Let my name be ever the household word it always was. Life means all it ever meant. There is absolutely unbroken continuity. Why should I be out of mind? Because I'm out of sight. I am waiting for you, for an interval, somewhere near, just around the corner. All is well.